Of course, drinking's another matter. I can't hold a cup, and that's when May has to help me. For the first few years after I left hospital, I had to rely on May for almost everything, and I could never be left alone comfortably for long periods. But as she had to teach at school during the day, somebody else had to come and look after me. So every morning, my other sister, Kathleen, used to come and take over. Kathleen lives just round the corner. Usually she brings the local paper, because I like to know what's going on. As time went by, I felt that I was far too dependent on my sisters, so my next step was to try to get around the house under my own steam. My legs and arms were useless, so I had to design an entirely new type of wheelchair that would make best use of the little movement I had. My only movement was this nudging, and it was this movement which I finally utilized in the new chair. By nudging my right arm, I could move forwards, each nudge pushing a ratchet, which in turn pushed a cogwheel at the side. By using my scratcher, I could engage another ratchet and go backwards. By nudging with my left arm, I could steer myself in any direction I wanted to go. Once I could move about by myself, I began to think of all sorts of things I could do. Most of all, I wanted to get into my workshop. By altering the catch on the door and having the floor sloped, I was there. I hadn't moved so fast for years. Once in the workshop, I began to feel quite differently about life. I began to think what sort of job I could do to earn a little money. Well, trimming pictures and mounting them on Christmas cards was one answer. For this, I had to design a special guillotine. It's operated by electricity, and a slight nod of the head will bring the blade down. I do all the trimming first and the mounting afterwards. For someone like me, any job like this requires a lot of organization. In getting the guillotine constructed and a number of other gadgets, I was helped by my friend Walter Pritchard. We made an odd pair, for he was partly crippled too. You see, he was blind. So whenever we did a job together, we used to use my eyes and his hands. It was Walter, too, who fitted the workshop with electric leads so that I could plug in all my gadgets. A gadget which gives me great comfort is my electric foot warmer, and my chair by this time was also fitted with its own plumbing. Now I could get about, I could move on to other jobs. I had to learn to write all over again. It was like going back to school. The paper and my pen are kept on a tray, which I can swing over. For writing, I need my glasses. This slotted piece of metal does the trick. It's crude, but it works. Writing was a bit tricky at first, but I have learnt to manage, and now, as well as writing to my own friends, I also do some amaze correspondence. She hates letter writing. I think most people do. I can also use a telephone, but it had to be changed round a bit. A clip releases the cradle, and I dial with a pencil. As well as moving about inside the house, nowadays I go out into the garden. I fix the workshop door so that it can open with an electric motor. It's amazing what you can do with government surplus parts. Moving the chair outside is rather difficult, except on a smooth path. And I'm thinking of designing a chair running off batteries. When I want to go out, my good neighbour Harry James comes over and takes me big car. For this I have a second wheelchair, which can be made to go sideways. The car doors, too, have been altered to take my chair. I'm lucky, of course. I always get the best seat beside the driver. In the car, we often go out for the day, sometimes down to the seaside. Every summer we go on holiday, usually to the Isle of Wight. We travel about the island or just go down to the beach. We stay in a caravan, which makes me completely independent of hotels or boarding houses, where I feel in everyone's way. In the caravan we can do as we please. Everyone has always been very kind to me, which is a problem in itself, for it's essential to let people like me try and do things for themselves. My sisters understand this and let me learn in my own way. 20 years ago, the doctors weren't able to help me much, but they tell me that nowadays there's a lot of research going on, and now, too, hospitals provide many of the gadgets which I had to improvise for myself. What's more, they teach and encourage you to use them. People often wonder what I get out of life. Well, what you've seen will perhaps answer that. I do know one thing. In spite of all my handicaps, I've refused to be left on the shelf. And every day there's a new problem to be solved, and I enjoy that. It's getting over these problems that makes my life worthwhile. I look on life as a challenge. My challenge.